hello. Welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. Our sponsor this week is BetterHelp. More about that later. I'm William Gallagher, and joining me is Wes Hilliard, who only last week came to blows with Mike Wortherly. I'm trying to get you to listen to last week's episode. I'll do that after you've listened to this one, won't I? Wes, it was an amicable separation of powers over the Apple Vision Pro, wasn't it, last time?
Yes, Mike and I differ on Apple Vision Pro and where it's going as a device. I mean, I think ultimately we both agree that it's the future. As far as Apple's concerned, they're going to be working on this actual lineup for a while, as we see Vision OS 2, 3, 4, Apple Vision Pro 2. That's not going anywhere. It's just how they're executing now. We actually agree that they're not doing enough. But again, we're still differing in use cases and how useful the device is, right? I still wear mine regularly. I work in it sometimes when it makes sense. I'm wearing it now as we record because it's a good way to manage Windows without having my voice reverberate off of a display. Just different things. But of course, Mike is been around for a little bit longer than me, so he's going to be a little bit quicker to sour on some of these more gimmicky products, and Vision Pro does fall into a little bit of that category. And I think it was a good discussion.
It really was. I wasn't here last week, so I listened to it, and that's the thing. I don't really want anybody to stop listening to us now and go listen to it, but please don't miss it, because it was I thought a particularly good exchange, especially because I'm so on the fence about Apple Vision Pro, which might actually also, just realise this as I said it, play into this week's AppleInsider Plus. AppleInsider Plus is the extended extra bit for subscribers. So subscribers get an ad-free version of the episode, plus a longer section called AppleInsider Plus, which this time is, well, there's a lot to unpack here, and Wes is going to tell you about it because it was his idea, but really it comes down to when you're drawing the line, I think is the phrase, between being just a fan of Apple and buying everything and trying everything, and also being able to step back and say, no, this isn't right for me, or that is actually a bad decision. On my mind is Apple and unions, but I'm sure we'll come back to this in AppleInsider Plus and maybe talk about products and the inevitable time we come to when we all switch to Android. But right. In the meantime, yes, you're tempted, aren't you?
Well, so it's going to be a conversation because if everyone paying attention, there's kind of different slices of Apple fan, right? There's the just absolute fanboy that cannot fault Apple in any way ever. Everything they do is, as they say over in X, 4D chess. Like everything is a plan, and they're executing on this upper level. And even if it's bad, it'll be good later. And then there's, of course, a more realistic standpoint of, it's a company, they don't care about you, they do good things, they do bad things. And then there's the people who are just downright done. They're looking at what Apple's done lately, and they're just like, I don't know if I can support this company anymore. And I wanted to test and see where we are on the spectrum of Apple.
Yeah.
Because I have seen some reactions to the latest EU developments and other things of just saying, maybe we need to stop giving Apple money, which is a fair argument, but I think we should have that discussion. Some of the topics might come up during the regular show, but as far as mine and William's position, we'll cover in AppleInsider Plus.
Well, yes, we will, and I'm really looking forward to it, and of course that's AppleInsider Plus thing. But first, I think we have a genuine concern at the moment. AppleInsider episode, the podcast, it tends to be about an hour. We don't hold it to 60 minutes. It's whatever's going on, what it's worth. And then there's AppleInsider Plus. But there is a strong, strong chance that Apple will not survive until the time of AppleInsider Plus, because Apple is doomed, isn't it? I can think of 3 different ways that it is completely doomed, not going to survive the next hour. But what's striking you as the most crucial part of Apple's ultimate demise this week?
Well, clearly, Apple replacing their CFO of the past decade is a sign of everything just being shambles, right? They're struggling to make a dollar. Their CFO just doesn't know where to find any more money. They've looked under every rock, and I think the world's just run out of money, and the CFO's got to go. They got to get a new guy in there. Is that a good assessment?
I think that's fair. I mean, there are reports that Apple is... what's the report? Counterpoint Research has been adding up, and it thinks Apple is on track to hit $400 billion revenues across the whole of 2024. I think Luca Maestri, the outgoing CFO, has realised that's it. That's not enough. I'm out of here before they fire me. Really,
I mean,
isn't it? I mean,
when
400 billion.
When you're the number one publicly traded company in the planet, worth something around $3 trillion, and selling one of the most popular devices ever created by man, obviously it's only downhill from here, William. There's no way to go any higher, and I think Luca Maestri is just, you know what, it's done. I gotta go. But seriously, what's going on here?
I am curious. I mean, CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, is a massive part of it. I don't think I know the name of any other CFO. It's just 4 times a year I listen to Apple's earnings call, and Tim Cook comes on and says everything's wonderful, and then for all the times I've been listening, Luca Maestri has come on and said, yes, everything is wonderful to this degree, and given the figures for it. So I'm very conscious of what he does, and I know there must be CFOs in every large company doing it, but he's been the kind of voice of the bank. He's the sensible money guy, and now he's going, and we don't, as far as I know, we're not clear where he's going to. Is he just going to take it the cut and run?
No, he's actually staying in the company, and he's still going to be in a top executive position where he reports directly to Tim Cook.
All right. Do you know about what?
So he's going to be, well, I have it right here.
Actually, I wonder what the new CFO. Yeah.
He's going to remain involved as a corporate service in the corporate services teams and report directly to Tim Cook. So he's basically just staying within the company. He's just no longer going to be CFO. I think this is fine. I had to find it funny because this goes along with our Doom segment. Bloomberg, love them. Big hack story. Look it up. They they covered this as Tim Cook can't let go of any of his executives. Every time they leave their position, they're given another one in the company. It's just like, what is this framing? I don't understand. Like, it's somehow a CFO of 10 years making Apple one of the most successful companies on record, stepping down to a easier, less stressful job that he might have earned, I would say, is somehow being painted poorly. Like, oh no, we made Eddie Q an Apple fellow. We couldn't let him just quit, right? People are still in charge of the App Store. I don't really understand the framing, but I just did have to laugh at it because again, Apple is doomed, and they're a failure, and everything they do is wrong. If you read the headlines, anyway.
Yeah, Bloomberg. Lots to say in praise of Bloomberg, but I can never forget the Chinese spy chips nonsense from 6-7 years ago now, that is still going to destroy the world eventually, but we can't prove it because it isn't happening. That one.
I'm going to give the name a go. We haven't heard it said out loud, but
yeah.
Kevin Perrick. So that's
yeah. I was thinking Kevin Perret because I'm just guessing there,
that's
but
probably
no,
more correct than mine.
It rolls off the tongue nicely, doesn't it? I look at the depth of research we do here about this. We're both guessing at the names and coming up with different directions. But
right.
Whoever it is, they're obviously qualified for it. But I am really curious to know what they'll feel like doing that job with Luca 2 doors down.
Right. And they've been at the company for 11 years already. They're not coming out of nowhere. And yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. This is one of those things that everyone always wants to read tea leaves. People come and go, except maybe Tim Cook. He'll be around until he can't. But these executive positions are important, and simply put, Mastery's been at it for a decade, and it's one of the most difficult jobs in corporate. If you're a chief financial officer, this is probably one of the highest places you can be, and being in that position for 10 years is frankly exhausting. I mean, I don't know why he retired, but he's definitely just, I would say he earned whatever he is doing. I don't think it's a sign of anything, but what is a sign? Layoffs. Yeah, the doom at Apple where we
no, wait a minute. You are 6 seconds away from telling me that Apple can't let go of anybody, and now you're saying they are letting go of people. Well,
of course. Because even though Bloomberg's reporting this, they have to, their consistency is not required, William.
No.
But yes, internal sources, speaking to the big hack source, they There's 100 layoffs within the services division. Ooh, scary. This is a fun one. Basically, it's focusing on Apple Books. There's some people in Apple News being let go. It sounds to me like it's one of those regular reshuffles. Sometimes you just have redundancies. Apple did purchase a giant magazine distributor. I don't think there was ever any direct layoffs from that, so maybe they're finally coming down to that. People laid off also affect other services, just lesser so. Only ones mentioned in the report were Apple News and Apple Books. Some people are worried about Apple Books as a result of this, but they confirmed that there is still a lineup of features planned for the future of this app, so it's not like Apple's going to give up on books entirely. They're just deprioritizing it a little bit.
I'm curious about books. I mean, I tend to read most on Kindle, on a Kindle Paperwhite for the convenience of it, but given the option, Apple Books on an iPad compared to Kindle on anything, the Apple Books is just gorgeous. The typography, the whole look of it, absolutely so much better. I will spend more money to buy a book and get it off of Apple Books if it weren't for the convenience of the Kindle Paperwhite. But all of the book deals with publishers have presumably long been done. The app doesn't get a massive amount of attention. It had a redesign not very long ago, but not a gigantic one. I was just wondering how much work there is left to do with it, which is probably a failure of imagination. What sort of things do you think? What am I missing? What am I not thinking of?
Well, first of all, there's a reason why Apple Books is a difficult sell. It's because it's only available on Apple products. I would do like they did with podcasts, music, and these other things, put books on the web. Let us access, there's so many e-readers out there that if Apple Books was available on other platforms, if you could get a Books app on a Kindle, that would be a game changer. Because then, personally, I would honestly probably buy one of those e-readers, because then I would have access to my personal Apple library on a third-party device, because Apple's never going to make an e-reader. But e-readers are a separate enough category from an iPad that I would be interested in at least exploring the idea. But as long as it's a separate library, I'm not going to go buy an e-reader and then rebuild my catalog on Kindle or whatever these other platforms are. And I'm not going to go and DRM free my books. I know there's ways to do it, but I would prefer to have a universal sync, and Apple could provide that. I know Apple's not big on cross-platform stuff, but if they want to be a services company, this is how you do it. You show up everywhere, and they did that with Apple TV Plus. They're doing that with Apple Music, so they're not allergic to it. I think Apple Books, if Apple wanted it to thrive and survive, that would be the next most logical step. Get it everywhere, even if it's through the web, but personally I would prefer an app.
That's clever. I'm just about to review a thing, it hasn't arrived yet, called a Books, BOOX, like a small e-reader.
Books.
And Books. That sounds very... There's a British accent at that, Books. Or is it Canadian? Anyway, the Books thing, it's an Android tablet, and I've used some of their stuff before, and as long as you just ignore all of Android and go straight into the book section, it's great. But the fact that it is Android means it has the Google Play Store, and I think on one of these devices I had to not buy, but download, that's the word, the Kindle app. If you could just have an Apple Books app for Android, that would get it on all these.
I think this is one of those annoying things. There's a discussion this week, and I can tangent into that because I don't think we directly covered it on Apple Insider. But I have it in my head, so don't let me lose it. But I think there's a worry that Apple is losing its way. And this is, doom. But this is Apple losing its way as far as being the cross-section of liberal arts and technology. One of the things was Steve Jobs loved books. That Apple Books exists because of his love for books and reading. And it seems like, laying off a bunch of people and de-emphasizing Apple Books is a bad sign. And then there's another bad sign. When Apple Intelligence latest beta, we'll get to that later, came out, they had one of those pop-ups that show up at startup explaining summarization for notifications. And the example they used, I don't know if you saw this, William, was the Steve Jobs speech about the crazy ones. And they summarized it. They showed a snippet of the speech, and then they did a little magic glitter and said speech about people thinking differently or whatever. It was the summary. Now, the internet obviously erupted over this. They're taking something beautiful and removing the humanity from it. They're destroying it. They're doing everything that AI has been doing. And and this I guess gets into Apple Insider Plus. I would take a less cynical take. I agree it probably wasn't the best example, and I want to hear what you think. But my take is it's a summary of a notification. First of all, I think Apple chose poorly because no one's ever going to receive that in a notification. But also, these summary notifications aren't meant to prevent you from opening the thing and reading it. You're still meant to go and click on the thing and go and read the article, the email, the message. The notification summary is meant to just say, hey, this is what it's about in a more concise way. If you just saw a notification saying, email from Steve Jobs, here's to the crazy ones, comma, ... It's like, what is it really saying, right? That's the point of the feature. Again, they summarized a poor thing, but I don't understand the lane of attack people are taking here.
I think I didn't know about that. I'd missed that one. I think I'm all right with it because you said it very persuasively. But I'm also, if you're a producer pitching to BBC Radio 4 here in the UK, if you're trying to get a drama away with it, you are required to describe the whole play in, I can't remember if it's 200 or 250 words, but what I remember is they say, for example, and they give a 200, say, word summary of Hamlet. And the line afterwards is, like, see, anything can be summarised in 200 words. But the thing is, you read that 200 words, you would never commission Hamlet. Not a single thin chance. So summaries are a different beast.
It's a purpose. They serve a purpose. It's not that you're removing humanity, you're removing everything.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think this is an AI argument. This is just an argument against summaries, which I think they serve a purpose in notifications where you don't get to see very much of it. So it goes back to the general attitude around Apple. People were calling back to squashing the iPad stuff, in the Crush ad, and now they're crushing Steve Jobs quotes. It's just like, guys, take a breath. It's important to hold on to these things, but what do you think, William? Is Apple losing touch with its liberal arts side? Is it losing touch with its creativity and its humanity and its soul every year now?
The thing is, you say that about Steve Jobs and loving reading, and it's why we've got Apple books. Steve Jobs went on record by saying Americans do not read anymore. And he said it when there wasn't an Apple Books thing. And it was like, because we don't have a product, I'm not talking about it. And I remember it grossing a furore at the time. And actually, I didn't know whether he was right or not. And then suddenly Apple Books comes out, or iBooks as they called it originally. And then he was back on the reading line. I think Apple talks a good talk when it's ready to. And all that's changed over the years is that it's so big. Its focus is that. Like, I had a problem this week with something, Apple News, I think, and I went to check Apple's service status page, and there's just column after column of different things it does. How you keep track of all that? What Tim Cook does first thing in the morning when he checks under the hood to see everything's working, it's beyond me. And there's got to be a dilution in there somewhere. But I still think you compare it to other companies. Steve Jobs famously said Microsoft has no taste, and I think that's true. I think that's actually riddled through the whole company for it. The companies take on the personality of the people running it, and the people who run it then tend to hire the people who are like themselves. Right. So it tends to propagate forward. So at the moment, no, I worry about dilution, but I don't think there's a problem.
Spoilers for the Apple Insider Plus segment, but I think Apple needs to compete, and getting into Apple Intelligence in their own unique way was a sign of Apple, because if Apple had come out the door with a GPT clone, I would be a little bit more worried. But even now, we got the cleanup tool, and it's interesting. I've been playing with removing stuff from images. We can get into the betas here if you want. Yeah. So cause this would be a good spot for it. So Apple released new betas. It came with the cleanup tool. That we can go straight from that. Notification summaries. So those two things are new with everything else in the beta. This seems to be getting closer to final. There's some speculation that Apple might actually ship 18.1 soon after the iPhone 16 launch. That the that version 18 might just be the shipping version and give people the chance to upgrade. Who knows what they're going to do, but it does seem like 18.1 is more polished than an early beta. So we'll see what happens there. But have you tried these new features?
No, actually, because being in the UK,
Right.
the only way to get Apple Intelligence was you have to set your region to the US, your language, Siri's language, and I did all that. But it has so many knock-on effects, like the formatting of phone numbers, the time being 12, our clocks are 24, the weather, just all sorts of things kept going on. It just got so irritating, and I didn't find the benefits from what limited improvement there was in Siri. I didn't find any benefit. So I switched it all back. I'm still on the betas, but I'm still in the UK region. I did learn this morning as we record this that apparently you now need to do fewer things to make it work. You don't have to change your region. You just have to change from US to UK to US language in general and for Siri. And I did try that, and I could see, when you call for Siri on 18.1 and it's Apple Intelligence, it has that gorgeous glow around the whole screen. That wasn't there, and I didn't have time to dig through to see if anything else was. But I kind of lost interest. I'll wait till it comes out normally, I think. Well, that's what I think today. Ask me tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. You're obviously deep into it. How do you find it? How successful is that removing of your exes from photographs?
Well, it's interesting. It's actually really clever. So this is very similar to tools we've seen in other apps. Sure, Google had a magic eraser tool well before Apple that relied on different versions of machine learning and then eventually AI. Now Apple's kind of doing the same. It's working pretty good. It really depends. It's just like anything. How much information does this tool have? It's local to the device. It has to be downloaded. So the first time you try to use it, it has to download the tool. It doesn't come pre-installed. But once it's there, it's locally run, and it's trying to understand what could be behind the image. And it does a really good job of being like, okay, two people standing in front on grass in front of a lake. I'm just going to repeat a grass pattern and a lake pattern, and it comes out pretty well. But if you're removing something very large that obscures enough of the background that it's difficult to understand, it starts getting wonky and starts cutting things in half. Or the thing I noticed that was interesting about this feature is the minute you click on the button, it highlights objects that it can remove automatically. You don't have to circle them. You don't have to. They're just glowing, and you tap them, and they go away. And they go away really well. The ones that Apple highlights disappear as if they were never there. Like it's like it knows that it can do a good job there. But when you circle something, or you can also just tap it or color in a section. When you do that, it's doing more guesswork. But I've noticed that a lot of overlapping objects. I have a photo of someone walking in front of a museum of a naval ship. So it's a ship in the background with, the giant artillery and radar dishes and stuff all across the top of it. So it's complex. And the person's legs are obscuring part of this ship. And I just went and highlighted their legs, and it got rid of it in a really convincing way. And of course, if you pixel peeped, it would definitely be messy, and if you looked at the actual ship, it doesn't know what the actual ship looks like behind the legs, but it guessed. But it did a reasonable job, and this is, of course, is in a beta, version 1, and it's already doing about what you would expect. And I like that Apple is kind of giving you built-in options. And going back to our previous discussions on Apple Intelligence, again, this feels more right than adding wildflowers. Now, that's not to say Apple won't give us a magic editor-like feature in the future that lets us say, give this image some pizzazz, put me in a spacesuit or whatever. Like, who knows what Apple's going to do? But not Magic Eraser, Cleanup still follows what seems like a strategy from Apple to users still have agency. They're still taking the photo, and then they're given the agency of removing these objects. It's not forcing it on you. It's a separate item in the editing tool. And it's even making intelligent suggestions that can alter the photo without destroying the photo. What do you think of that?
Some of this sounds like the kind of things I've been using. There's a repair tool in Photoshop in
Right.
Pixelator Pro, all of these. And it's actually when you said it didn't work, I remembered those, because there are times when it's just astounding, and other times when, no, not even passably close. But most of the time,
What a lot of these other tools do is machine learning based, and that usually uses nearest neighbor pixel guesses. So it's basically around the object area that you selected, what do the pixels look like? And let's basically clone those, and that's why you end up with a lot of weird smears or repeated patterns and brickwork or something. Like but that one, they worked and they were remarkable in their own way. But what makes a difference here with cleanup and other tools like it is the AI aspect of it, quote unquote, understanding what an image should look like. And but even with that understanding, it still gets things wrong. I have an image of someone standing in front of a brick wall with a vanishing point, so the brick wall is going into a more and more blurry territory. So the pattern for the bricks is there, it's just getting fuzzed out by the aperture of the camera. Removing that person should theoretically be possible because it is a repeating pattern with a slight increase in fuzziness as you go. A human eye can see that. Intelligence technically should be able to see that, but it failed and recreated it and created kind of a spiral pattern around the bricks. It did successfully remove the person, but the thing that was left behind was not an accurate representation of the brick pattern. So, like, it's doing its best. It's not going to be perfect, especially this early, but it is interesting to see how it's thinking about removing objects.
sounds prettier though. Spirals. That was. Did it look good?
No, it was just it clashed and was obvious. And in that example, you'd never do that because then you're removing the subject. But I can see myself using this tool because every now and then there's a moment where it's like I don't want. So funny enough, we kept this photo because it's funny. But someone ran by. We were out on a nature trail, and someone was jogging past us when I was proposing, and we had her sister hide nearby, and she ran up to take photos. And while she was taking pictures, a jogger ran by in the middle of the proposal. So there is a photo with a jogger, and if that was the perfect image, other than the jogger, now I can remove that jogger from the image, right? Like there are situations where you can say this could be a little bit more pure, a little more focused on the subject by removing some distracting elements. I think this is admissible because we've been doing this kind of stuff with Photoshop and stuff for years. This just speeds up that process. But I would never want to fundamentally alter what an image looks like. Just not on an everyday basis. Every now and then it's fun when you're kind of, memeing things and making silly images, but I wouldn't want to do it all the time.
I actually forgot that you just proposed. I feel bad now about saying, are you editing your exes to photos? Let's just move on. I'm terribly curious. I did not realise this about the fact that you have to actively download this cleanup tool because you also have to actively, positively choose to download Apple Intelligence. And I would have imagined it all just would come. So what do you think the reasoning is there?
Well, you made the joke about exes. I wanted to say, are you aware of the practice at weddings that if you're doing family photos, that if you have a good photographer, keep this in mind, listeners, they will do a set of photos with the core family and spouses, and if there is a boyfriend or any kind of unwed couple, they will do with and without the unwed pair.
Yes.
So I was recently attending a wedding and had to do that myself for her sister's wedding. So I'm in some of the photos and out of it. So maybe now with Apple Intelligence, we just take one photo and we can just clean me out if we needed to. You know what I mean?
Right.
Save a little bit on the digital film, I suppose.
Right. Let's not pursue this thought now because everything is yes. Flashing back to my own wedding with.
But the download question.
Sorry, I really am intrigued by that. Yeah.
So I think there's a reason. Yeah, I think there's a reason. So basically, the idea of all of Apple Intelligence features, this goes back to Apple's strategy, voluntary and specific to the user. It pops up and says, this is the cleanup tool. Would you like to use it? This is how it works. You click OK, and then it downloads it. If you never use this tool, if you're never even edit your photos, and it takes up some amount of space, I have no idea how much. I haven't looked if it's even in system settings. But if it takes up a significant enough amount of space, people could get upset that it's taking up space and they're not even using it. And now Apple's forcing this feature on them kind of thing, right? Like that's the mentality there. These other models are relatively light. I would assume the photo model would be a little more heavy because it has to have a better understanding of images. So yeah, I think that's just the thought behind it. Maybe in the future it'll lighten up a little bit and just be automatically included, but especially in this first version,
Right.
Apple doesn't want it on your device unless you literally open a photo, click edit, scroll over to clean up, click that, and then download it. Like you have to go out of your way to get it.
Do you know that this year marks 10 years since Apple inserted a U2 album on everybody's, would it have been iPhone or iPod back then? I can't remember. But
Both.
This is the 10th anniversary of the thing, and I still haven't listened to it. I probably should by now.
Speaking of Apple events where fingers are touching, we might have another finger touch event coming up.
Finger touch event. I don't
Well, he
whether I
touched
want to
fingers
know
with
what that
Bono
meant.
to send.
Oh,
the
right. Oh,
albums.
okay. I don't know where I thought that was going. Let's
But-
not pursue it. Okay, yes, we could.
But yeah, what do you think? We got invites. We have a tagline.
Yes, and it's September the 9th. I wrote a whole feature working out, calculating the logistics, the prime marketing spot, all of this, and concluded without question September the 10th. And Apple goes, nah, we're not doing that. Apple the 9th, September the 9th. I imagine that's because the news cycle on the 10th is going to be all about the presidential election. Does that make sense?
I was going to make a joke about that because Americans are so pompous that we're like, well, it's our election interrupting the... I don't think so because Apple's event would be at 1 and debates tend to be primetime TV, which is like 8 to 9 p.m. So
True.
Apple would totally miss it. They would own that entire cycle. Doing it 24 hours before isn't going to change anything. Everyone's still going to be talking about that, Monday, Tuesday. The next 2 months is going to be dominated by election theme. So I don't think there's any avoiding that. There must have been some other reason that's just unforeseen. Maybe, Tim Cook has a haircut on Tuesday. It's hard to say. But Monday's fine. They've done Monday events before. They're not often, but they're not I wouldn't even classify them as rare either. But yes, Monday event, 1 p.m. We're going to have It's Glowtime, which people have been making their own guesses, but I think it's pretty obvious. What do you think that tagline's suggesting?
It's the Siri thing that I'm missing, isn't it? Surely.
Absolutely. And the glow isn't just for Siri. It's everywhere. Everything that is anything to do with Apple Intelligence, it glows, it sparkles, it's rainbows. All of it. Writing tools, cleanup, all of it. So, clearly an Apple Intelligence push.
As a strapline, it doesn't feel like their best somehow.
No,
I'm trying to remember other ones. I don't know. Okay.
A little silly.
All right. Yes. They've done some cracking ones before. The only one's popping to mind is about Thin Possible. I thought was a really good.
If Apple hates nostalgia, like Steve Jobs built that into the company, never look back, but I would have went with Think Different to be, because,
Yes.
Artificial intelligence, you're thinking. I don't know how many times you can use that in the lifetime of a company, but I think, how long has it been? 40 plus years? I think we can do it again.
Please don't say that. Yes. Do you know, my mind's still on the downloading of things. Until you said that about the size of it, I was wondering, is this actually a pointer to the future where Apple will have so much Apple Intelligence on board and the rest in a downloadable AI app store or something? And I'm still not sure, but what you said it's very persuasive about the size.
What if you could tell Siri you're looking at a photo and then you invoke Siri and say, clean this image up? What if it automatically removed all of the removable highlighted objects? Like, there's so many interesting things that can happen here. What it looks like from different reports is, yes, iPhone 16s, obviously. This is going to be the last year with a Plus model, so Plus fans, get your final model. There seems to be some rumors that Apple will have very specific Apple Intelligence features, new ones, perhaps even exclusive to the 16 series. It may be the 16 Pro series. We have no idea what that looks like, what they could be, but taking advantage of a new A18 Pro chipset. Is that right? A18 Pro?
I think so. I can't conceive of what extra there could be in Apple Intelligence, but I think really this comes down to that's why Apple doesn't employ me. Really, they're going to come up with something, and I love this. I saw something recently, somebody saying that Johnny Ive described great design as being something that's staggeringly obvious after the fact, and I think that's Apple's very good at that with all sorts of things. So maybe there'll be more. Yeah,
you've had to have had a moment in your life where someone's released a new device object thing, and you're like, why didn't I think of that? That's so obvious. The thing that squeezes the toothpaste out of the tube and you don't have to roll it up. Like, I should have invented that, right? Like, everything's always obvious.
No, wait, hang on. I've never heard of that. I still squeeze. There's a device for this?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Bluetooth? Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a Wi-Fi connected toothbrush or toothpaste squeezer. That's being used for a botnet to, anyway.
Right. Yeah, I'm not going on Amazon this moment to check this out, but okay. So, there was a moment, actually, and I'm looking at it. I'm looking at a MacBook Pro. I still remember the day I saw the first PowerBook and they'd just push the keyboard to the back so that you had... I would use so many PC laptops up to then with your cramped fingers at the front. Why did no one else do this before? It's like staggeringly obvious, and there has never been a laptop since that didn't do exactly the same. It was so obviously right. But that's the kind of thing Apple is good at. So... I can't imagine what's next, but yeah. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is an online therapy service, and while, just as you'd expect, it's there to help you and me through problems that we're having, it's also ultimately about our overall state of mind. When I've had therapy here in the UK, I've worked on issues, and it's helped absolutely, but lifting some of the weights off your mind helps you regain a thing that we all tend to lose with all of the pressures of adult life. By helping us cope with what's occupying us now, BetterHelp also helps us regain that curiosity, that kind of constant learning that we definitely had when we were children, but which we somehow lose in adult life. And actually, this really amuses me. So much of the pressures on so many of us today come from having to be constantly online, constantly available. BetterHelp is online and constantly available. BetterHelp turns this around into a benefit instead of a problem. BetterHelp is entirely online so that you have the help when you need it. You don't lose an afternoon going to a therapist's office. You instead book a session at whatever time suits you. And not only the time thing, as well as online, I mean, it can be the kind of video call that you're thinking of, but it could just be a phone call. It could even just be text messaging. Whatever suits you and suits your situation, BetterHelp is available. Plus, when you first sign up, you are remarkably quickly taken through a series of questions that practically guarantee you get the therapist that is best suited to helping you. And the questions, they don't press for details. So, I mean, usually it's so hard to define a problem at the start. So there's nothing like that. But it will ask you that thing about video calls. Do you like those or text messages? It will ask you preferences, and then it will match you with one of BetterHelp's own thousands of therapists. I mean, literally thousands of them. And then I said practically certain to get the right one. If something doesn't work out, if it doesn't feel right, you can immediately switch to someone else until you do get the person you need. Until you get the person who can help with your issues, but who can also help you for the future, who can bring back our capacity to learn more, to enjoy learning more. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/AppleInsider today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/AppleInsider. And thanks to BetterHelp for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
We should hold our breath for MacBooks, right? That's more of an October thing. It would be 1 year since the M3 MacBook Pro. Some seem to assume M4 is coming very quickly. This is a very quick cycle, right? January, October. 3 MacBook Pros introduced in rapid succession.
All to make my M1 look really old now, but it's still good. Actually, I'm glad about this because I've been reading stories about all the things Apple could announce at the iPhone event.
Right.
Every year we get this. It's an iPhone event, but they're going to mention the car. They're going to
Right.
introduce all these Macs, all these iPads. It's and afterwards it will be, well, Apple changed their mind. Did they? Hell, this is an iPhone launch. They used to put the Apple Watch in there because the watch needed the lift of the attention on the phone. I don't know that it does anymore, but it's still in there.
They still do the watch, yeah.
I was looking back over a few years, and there from time to time they do other things, but it's always related, always a mention. AirPods, thank you. That's the obvious exact example of clearly
Home,
fit with
like
everything
home
else.
kit, right?
I don't remember the HomeKit launches.
They love showing off their model house. You know.
Oh, yes. That
and
set is really good. Yes.
last year, they walked from a train station into the model house, if you remember, and they went over. I'm thinking WWDC, but I think what's interesting is it could. iPhone is not exclusive. Apple likes throwing out little tidbits, but usually they're small. So we could get an AirPods update with 2 new models. One the higher priced one with ANC, right? Because we're going to AirPods Pro 3 next year with even more flashy features and digital ANC and stuff like that. There's a lot of rumors around that. I can see new AirPods coming. But the one I'm interested in, because I'm not going to buy AirPods, I'm going to get AirPods Pro, AirPods Max, if they're ever announced. But would you be interested in this? I can't remember if you own one right now, but a new iPad mini.
I would be interested. I don't. I've used an iPad mini in the past, and I found the size great. At the moment, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm strongly tempted to go to the Pro Max version for 16. And if I did that, I felt like that's practically an iPad mini, and that might be part of the reason for it, but I do kind of fancy that form factor.
iPhones are getting bigger. I think this one's going to be 6.9 inches.
Yes, and isn't it weird how that bothers me when it's a phone and how to hold it? I've even been into Apple stores trying out the 15 Pro that I have next to the 15 Pro Max to see, and I come away conflicted over it. But an iPad Mini, which would probably be slightly bigger, seems the right size.
Did you enjoy our show art last week of Obi-Wan holding an iPhone?
Yes. Yes, that was... I don't know how I missed that. I remember other memes from around the time. This is the one where...
Taller, not longer. iPhone 5S.
Yes, the iPhone stretched out, and for some reason there was also a shield, which didn't feel very Jedi-like. But yeah, I remember other extended, tall iPhones. Tall is good. I think
it works for film. If you're watching a movie on your phone or YouTube and you have that 16:9 or ish aspect ratio, I wonder how long until we get into the Hateful Eight. It's super wide. You know what I'm talking about. Quentin Tarantino shot on some unbelievable aspect ratio for Hateful Eight.
I like Panavision.
Panavision.
Kind of.
Right. When are we getting the Panavision iPhone? That's the.
Oh, I quite fancy that. Yes.
The best way to watch Hateful Eight, everyone. I do wonder. iPad Mini is definitely a big buy. I'm going to instantly buy it. I love my iPad Mini. It's feeling the burn. That battery is in pain. This thing came out in 2021, so 3 years of heavy use, daily use. So definitely feeling that. I will be upgrading and passing the iPad Mini 6 on to somebody. Very great device. I would love to see just anything added to it. I don't care, but just give me a new processor that runs Apple Intelligence and I'm happy. I'm feeling like it'll go M2. It's not going to go Apple's A17 Pro, but M2 makes sense for the iPad series. Everyone else is running it except for the base model and the Mini, so maybe it's time to shift to the M series on the Mini as well. M2 is good enough.
You wouldn't, for example, hang on for an iPhone Fold, which might turn out to be the same size.
Well, we've discussed this before. I don't think it's ever going to happen. It keeps getting pushed. This is the Apple Car all over again. I remember a report in 2016 suggesting Apple was going to have an Apple Car announced by 2018, right? The iPhone Fold has been a rumor since at least 2019. It might be earlier than that, but at least 2019 was when it got serious, and they were like, "Oh, any day, any time, iPhone Fold," and then it was like 2021. Apple is preparing a 2022, and then it's just every year they're pushing it back another 2 years, and here we are in 2024, and they're announcing. Rumors are suggesting Apple has an iPhone flip or fold planned as soon as the iPhone 18 or 19 series. So 2 to 3 generations from now, we could finally get the mythical gimmick phone that honestly shouldn't exist. Folds are cool, right? The Pixel Fold, interesting. They're selling out because they made 12 of them and all 12 of their customers bought them. But it's very fun form factor, but fun is not always practical. And I don't think Apple's going to intentionally sell a device that is so easily broken, so easily distorted in that way.
Yeah. Apple is very careful about what it releases. I mean, I am convinced the reason they stopped the car is they couldn't get quite the right colour blue for it. That's it. So, no, it's over. So, yes, the idea of them putting out a phone that has a crease down the middle and it falls apart. Can you imagine all those ridiculous YouTubers who do stress testing that they say it's for us? And, we know that Apple has gone through like $1 billion worth stress testing before it ever came to that. But yes, the first thing people would do is try to snap the flip phone back.
They're going to rip it in half like a phone book. That's going to be a whole thing.
Yeah. This is why we can't have nice things.
But what's going to be interesting, though, is we do have rumors about a future iPhone. We're already hearing about the iPhone 17. Are you already tired? Is the iPhone 16 just not going to do it for you, William? Or are we going to wait a year for the next iPhone?
Well, there are genuinely enough stories about the 17 that make me wonder whether I should skip the 16 like I skipped the 14. And part of me actually thinks I'll wait to see what the Apple Watch is like, and if it's really nice, I might just buy that and hold off on the 16. Or if it's really nice, I might just buy everything. My accountant did not hear me say that. So
I mean, I'm personally looking at Apple Watch Series 10, but if that Ultra can come out in a black color, I would totally buy it. But yeah, we know that.
Yeah, I really really like the screen size of the Ultra, but I just find it so chunky that no, I'm on a Series 7 at the moment, Apple Watch, and I like it very much. So I'm highly likely to stay, but these are the things that bother me. I'm not saying they keep me up at nights waiting for September the 9th, but I do think about them, which way to go. But you're not going to be doing that because you're on the iPhone upgrade program. You will automatically get is it the Pro Max that you go for? I keep forgetting.
It's not automatic. I can choose to keep paying and not get the new phone, but why do that? That's no fun.
Yeah, exactly. It might as well be automatic. Yeah, so...
Right, so... I'll definitely get the 16 Pro Max and the 17 Pro Max, which apparently is going to have 12 gigs of RAM and vapor chamber cooling. Very fancy.
I was going to say I don't fully understand vapor. I don't understand it at all. What is vapor chamber cooling? I mean, it sounds like an album name.
Okay, I'm going to go off of a guess, so everyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds kind of like you're going to have a vacuum-like space. That's not totally a vacuum. It'll probably have some sort of material in there that would be considered a type of vapor. But it's basically an empty space that acts as a heat sink in addition to the graphene layer. So graphene's not going anywhere. It's still going to be pretty much a plate attached to the battery and motherboard where the processor is. So it would absorb the heat from any operations there. And then between the graphene layer and the back of the phone, there will be the vapor chamber layer, which again, if you think of a thermos, a thermos has a vacuum which keeps heat in, which is bad. You don't want to do that with a phone, but because of the quote unquote vapor chamber, that would actually allow heat to exchange through that, but without affecting any other components in the phone. So basically it would act as a way to pass heat more efficiently from the graphene layer to the external of the phone without overheating anything. Maybe it would trap the heat in a way that would keep it away from vital components while syncing it to the outside of the phone, because getting it out of the phone, usually into the user's hand or pocket or whatever surface the phone's touching, or the air perhaps, is a less efficient conductor of heat. So it needs to get that heat off of the processor and have a vehicle to transport that heat, and I think that's what the vapor chamber would be for.
I have noticed during the beta process that my iPhone gets really hot But earlier today, it actually said, I'm not charging anymore until the iPhone returns to normal temperature. But if that is a guess, I think that's a far more effective guess than our attempt at pronouncing Kevin Pereira's Luca Mostri's replacement. So you were very convincing there. If you turn out to have been wrong, then you could sell me a bridge. You could do anything.
I'm pulling it up now just for fun to go ahead and live corrections.
Oh, you got check your work. Yes, check your working out. Okay.
Well, because just for anyone listening who didn't know, obviously, former nuclear Navy, I've been trained on a lot of
good point
material sciences, and so like I can make a lot of guesses based on fancy flash words, but I mean that doesn't mean I'm always going to be accurate. But let's see what we got here. Vapor cooling, synonymous with vapor chamber and vapor chamber cooling. It's been a common buzzword in the laptop industry, but it's being funneled into the smartphone.
I've never heard it before.
Right. It's one of those things. I've heard of like water-cooled computers, which I always thought was contradictory, right? Like having water piped through. What I understand how a heat exchange unit with water works, obviously, but in a computer I don't know. It's like, what are you doing in Minecraft that you need water cooling, guys?
The Power Mac G5 had water cooling, and then when it became the Power Mac, and it was so much cooler, they didn't need anything, and they could suddenly put in more hard drives into the same chassis. And things like it really took up some space there. And you've never even heard of the Power Mac G5. Anyway, so basically, you were spot on, is what it sounded.
As the name reflects, vapor chamber cooling utilizes a vapor-filled chamber used for cooling. Well, okay, thanks, guys. The definition is the word itself. Gotta love that. Vapor chamber is a flat pipe or conduit that contains a liquid. It can evaporate and then condense easily without mechanical condenser. So basically, cooling performed without a condenser. The fluid absorbs heat from a source and changes it to a vapor state. These vapors travel to the cooler parts of the chamber where it condenses to give off the absorbed heat. So basically, like I said, hot part of thing evaporates, sends the hot vapor to the cooler part of the thing, which is likely closer to the outside of the phone, condenses, releasing that heat to the outside of the phone. It acts as a transportation method for the heat, getting it off of the hot components quicker. And while you're waiting for the phone to transfer the heat to the air, it has a place to sit, and that way it's not sitting on the critical components. Even if it's slow at getting out of the phone, it won't have to be on top of the processor while it's doing that. So cool, I guess.
See what you did there. Cool. Okay. Well, applying my technical expertise to this, I'm going to go, yeah, that sounds right. That's very good. Yeah.
Which is an important skill.
Yes. How about this, though? Since you're explaining things, can you possibly explain to me, this is totally different, how a school in Illinois lost 2 children this week? Do you know about this story?
It happens all the time. They see shiny things, they chase it down. But luckily we have technology, right?
Yeah, I'm disturbed by this. The story is, we know about this because one of the children, the night before this 6-year-old boy's first ever day in school, she thought, a bit worried, I'm going to just pop an AirTag in his backpack. Don't mention it to him, just pop it in there. And as you might expect, she spent all day checking, yes, he's at school. But then there was this thing that after school he was going to be dropped back on the school bus, but to a different point, and she phoned school to see, just to check the details of where she had to be to pick him up from the bus. And nobody answers, or nobody could tell her, so they phoned her back, and when they phoned her back, they basically say, what child? He hasn't been in all day. Panic ensues, naturally. Police are phoned because the AirTag tracking was saying he's in school, but just at the moment, dramatically, perfectly, AirTag and Find My stopped working. Police get involved with it. Find My comes back to life. And the kid's father, it runs to where the bus is supposed to be and finds his son, but the bus driver will not let the son off because, no, it isn't your child. That's a different child completely. And it goes to hell. Basically, the school mixed up 2 kids right at the start of the day. So they were both in school all the time. They were under adult supervision the whole time, but they got it totally the wrong way round. But there are so many failures here. Why did it take until the end of the day for them to notice that they thought he wasn't there? There's supposed to be an automatic system that just pings the parents if the kid isn't there by 10 a.m. All sorts of... The school has basically put its hand up saying failures at almost everything. And I think that's generous for it. But the way it resolved with one kid was they found him by the AirTag. So I don't know how they resolved it with the bus driver. I do know they've now taken that kid out of that school and are looking for alternative arrangements. The other kid, though, the one it's really not clear, is this the one that he was mixed up with or not? But the other kid was somehow left off the bus somewhere else. You're not, apparently, the drivers are not allowed to let a child off the school bus unless the parent is there to collect them. But apparently they did, or they just never put the kid on the bus because these other parents arrived to collect where they should. He's not there, and they find him apparently 6 blocks away, crying on a corner with some other kid who got his parents to look after him for a while. It's like disaster all the way around. But right at the heart of it, an AirTag sorted it out, and I ought to be really pleased. But I'm terribly disturbed about the idea of AirTags being used to track people instead of objects. The kid is 6. By the time he's a little older, he's going to figure this out, and he'll know just where to hide the AirTag at school so he can actually go anywhere he likes and collect it afterwards. And then much later than that, there might be psychiatry bills and all sorts of things involved.
Oh, Lord.
But right now, for 6, I mean, where do you stand on this? Good thing?
Well, back in my day, they just threw you on a bus at 5 years old and said, make sure you get off at the right stop, good luck. And then they would shut the doors, and you'd arrive at the elementary school and pray that they can put you in the right room. And what was even more funny is in my elementary school had a bit of a expansive outdoor area. There was even like a small corn patch, and then a woodland that they had carved out a nature trail to take some kids on to show, like, here's a tree and here's some moss, right? Like you're in elementary school. And kids would often just during recess go on that trail, not supposed to. So yeah, I feel like losing kids is a thing that can happen, especially since they have minds of their own. They can just kind of wander around. AirTag not going to work in the middle of the woods. So this is one of those situations that it worked out perfectly. Apple recommends not using an AirTag to track your child because it is, if they get somewhere where people are not, because it requires someone else's device to ping off that AirTag. AirTags do not have an internet connection. So if they're lost outside of iPhone users, if they're kidnapped by a gang of Android users,
right, then
well, maybe now not so much because Google, Apple has that combined network, so that's nice. But in any case, AirTags do have a way of working well. Like you can buy those cute little wrist straps for kids or put it on their backpack as
I didn't know that.
Keychain.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like a wrist strap. They look like little duckies and frogs, and it looks like a little bracelet, and it's cute, and it's just an AirTag in there. As long as they don't, because if your kid's very nice, they might give it to a friend as a present, so you'll end up tracking the wrong kid.
Well, sell it. I obviously went to a harsher school than you did, inner city school kid here. Yeah, that could be the case, yes.
Did you ever get the candy cigarettes you could blow the smoke?
Oh, no. Candy cigarettes, yes. I don't know why, but nothing that could have...
Yeah, they stopped selling those, didn't they? You can't buy candy cigarettes anymore. What a world.
I think I'm all right with that one. That right. Doesn't sound like a loss, but okay.
Right. But no, AirTags are interesting. Like for pets, it works until it doesn't. If your dog eats it, bad. It's a battery. If your child eats it, bad. There's a battery. But there's definitely situations where they can work. If you attach it to their belt loop or their backpack, fine. But if you're really in one of those situations where, like this parent, maybe a little concerned, they sell very inexpensive GPS trackers that also look like bracelets that work through third-party apps. For me, I don't know that I would AirTag my child. I guess we'd have to wait and see what kind of technology is available when I do have one. But I'm still of the idea that once they're old enough, maybe closer to middle school, an Apple Watch would be an excellent addition for a kid. But maybe that's a market Apple should look into, is how do we when you're between the ages of 5 and 12, and they're maybe not responsible enough for a $300 Apple Watch, where are we at? But I guess there's enough third-party options that Apple doesn't have to worry about that space. Would you AirTag a child?
No, it wouldn't have occurred to me. But I'm interested that this story happened now because just last weekend someone was talking to me about the fact that next year they're going on quite a big holiday with someone that they know quite well, but they're not massive friends and they're not neighbours or anything, and they live in different parts of the UK. They're going to meet up at the airport, and she was quite concerned about the reasons to be concerned about joining up at the right time. She was going to post an AirTag to this friend so that this person I was talking to could track them as they were getting nearer to the airport and things. And I said no because, well, that sounds like I'm giving no permission. I mean, I said it was a bad idea because if you posted it more than a day, 2 days, something like that, maybe 3, the tag would start making a noise, like an anti-stalking noise and things, and that would go down very well in an airport.
Well, did you see where the person was tired of a package thief, so they mailed themselves an AirTag and tracked?
Yes.
That's clever. That's clever.
Yes, I like that one. They were right on the ball, weren't they? Said there wasn't time for the stalking noise to come out. But yeah, the stalking thing worries me. I think Apple Apple's been blamed for stalking, and not incorrectly, but I think what it actually did was put a huge spotlight on the whole area, because Tile was doing this for nearly a decade with no anti-stalking.
We've had these devices for a very long time. GPS devices, they were more expensive in the past, but never out of reach. But yeah, like this kind of stuff's been able to happen since the 2000s. It's just it's gotten better and better, and now finally it's reached that consumer level of you can spend $25 and track whoever you want wherever you want. That feels dangerous, but at the same time we have counter technology that can defeat it. So I think the people who want these tools to go away need to understand that you can use anything for good or bad. We need to be able to identify which is the better use case. And in these stalking events, the people who want to stalk someone are going to do it with or without the AirTag. They just, that taking away the AirTag doesn't take away the stalking personality.
But at least with the AirTag, you do get the noise. You are able to scan the AirTag. You can report to police. Apple does say who bought the thing. So, yeah, good and bad. This actually feels getting quite close to our AppleInsider Plus topic, which I'm quite keen to do, because I think we might have very different opinions here. I'll tell you what, on that bombshell then, kid found in Illinois, where can people find you without an AirTag?
Well, I'm on Mastodon. Haven't been there so much lately. A lot of things going on in my life right now keeping me away from the interwebs, but I'm still available. If you ping me, I will see it. You can email me using my email from any article I've written. Click my name. It'll open an email dialogue. Feel free to reach out about the show or anything we talk about here, or HomeKit Insider, where I sometimes appear as a guest. We have a video show on YouTube, but you can also listen on Apple Podcasts. I think that's the better route. We don't do anything video related, but if you want to stare into our eyes for half an hour to an hour, it is a possible option.
No, wait a minute. It is staring into your eyes, isn't it? Because I've watched. It's not staring into your Apple Vision Pro headset. So, is that vanity? You take it off for the recording.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, I have thought about doing that as a gag sometime, but I don't think I could maintain it for a whole show. I was just wearing the Vision Pro on a video podcast. That would be very silly. Maybe I need to do my persona instead.
Okay. Right, just picturing that. Anyway, you can find me, William at AppleInsider.com. I'm also on YouTube, knocking around most places, but email's the one that gets to me, and it's actually my favourite, so that would be great. Wes, great talking to you about this. I do want to yet again recommend last week's episode where I was... Wait, I was going to say it was great because I wasn't here, but that didn't sound right. It was just a really good episode, a very good discussion, I thought, between you and Mike Worthily. So do please, everybody...
Mike and I bring
we
bring a different energy to the show, I think.
Yeah. Is it a better energy? Are you...
No, just different.
Okay. Do please listen to that. Wes just mentioned HomeKit Insider, which is on every Monday. And, of course, Apple Insider will be back with Apple Insider Plus if you're a subscriber every week too. Before we head off into Apple Insider Plus for subscribers, let me just say thank you very much for listening. And also thank you to our sponsor, BetterHelp. But that's it for now. Speak to you next week.
Yeah, talk to y'all then.